Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Phoenix Wisdom Podcast. I am your host, Janet Sandberg, and I am here today with Dallas Collis. Dallas, welcome. I am so grateful to have you here and eager to hear your story.
Well, thanks for having me, Janet. I hope I can bring some wisdom to live up to the name of the podcast.
I'm sure you will. I have no doubt. So just start by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I always try and begin any talk with an agreement. So I'm wondering if you and I could agree to something here.
Of
And
course.
maybe your listeners will agree. And that is based around the question, what do we want? What does every human being want? We often call it, what is our purpose? I think when you pin down any parent and ask them what they want for their children, after doctor, lawyer, astronaut, whatever, they will say, in the end, I just want them to be healthy and happy. Do you think we could agree that actually every human being wants that same destination in their life? That's everything we do is to find a sort of peaceful heart, a worry-free mind, just happiness.
Absolutely.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
Then the question then begs, what are we waiting for?
Right?
What's in the way? What is the problem here? If it's that simple and we all want it, what is stopping all of us in general from being that happy, healthy, loving, beautiful human being that we're meant to be? And that leads us to the story.
Yeah.
You, Janet, are a story. You have a story. If I met you at a cocktail party, I'm introduced to Janet and I say, hi, Janet, nice to meet you. Can you tell me something about yourself? You would begin telling me some of your story. And this is the whole point of everything we'll discuss here today. Because you're telling me about your self-image, about your history, about events in your life. But who is that you're telling me about? Because you're telling me a story about someone. So most people don't tell you about the someone. They tell you about the story about the someone. Well, of course, I'm a story as well. My story in the early years had a lot of psychological and physical abuse, bullying. I came out of my childhood knowing that I was not smart, that I was a failure. School taught me I couldn't pass tests. I didn't learn to read early. I'm sure I was ADHD and dyslexic long before anyone was labeling kids.
Yeah.
So I came out of there dragging a lot of emotional baggage.
Yeah.
As every human being does. As every person alive has their own baggage that they drag with them. Some of those bags are very heavy and some of them are less so. So I went through years of a lot of pain, a lot of anger, regret, and I think all of us stumble onto our first addiction. And that addiction is blame.
Ooh.
We turn and look at our pain and our bags and we go, school's at fault, the church was at fault, Boy Scouts was at fault. My partner's at fault. My kids are at fault. My job is at fault. The economy's at fault. Some people live their whole lives in the blame addiction.
Yes.
And it's a defensive system. It's a defensive system like any addiction. It keeps you apart from your pain. It keeps you apart from the self-responsibility of looking inside and being honest.
Yes.
So it was enough pain that blame wore off. Didn't work well enough. So I needed something stronger. I needed a better medication. And I found that in alcohol. Alcohol's a wonder drug. Out with friends and partying and having drinks, and lo and behold, there's no pain. This is nothing but happiness. Isn't this a lovely life? But of course, years of that goes from partying on the weekends to drinking every day.
Right.
And then you need to add more drugs to it. And cocaine was a new one that was even better. Revved everything back up and no pain again.
Right.
These are all defensive systems. Every addiction is a defensive system against our own pain and suffering.
Yeah, to keep us from feeling what is threatening to be felt.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. The true self, not just the story we tell other people. So, of course, as a very smart person that I was, I marry a woman who is exactly the same, carrying her baggage, traumatized, an alcoholic as well. So we fit together perfectly. I think that's part of that is you think you're going to save the person, or they're going to save you, or at least together you'll support each other. I laugh. It's a very painful thing to think about. It's amazing how we lie to ourselves and abuse ourselves and others, all in this attempt to find something that gives us peace, or we think is going to get the happiness. And so, of course, for us, it was we built a business together. We buy a house together, cars together, vacations, 2 beautiful children. We're doing all the successful things. We're modeling that family.
Yeah.
But underneath that roof, of course, is a horror story. It's a terrible, abusive, just an angry, horrible, horrible relationship. And for, early on, you shouldn't be there. You shouldn't be together. But life does that thing where you get comfortable in the pain.
Yeah.
You learn to manage and cope and keep going. And you have this fantasy that things are suddenly going to get better. Maybe it's if you, fix the house up enough, buy a new car again, go on another vacation. But you get to a point where you realize it's serious trouble. It's a train wreck. And so I got the wake-up call, the luckiest day of my life. In the middle of a pandemic, I woke up one morning with cancer.
Oh, my gosh.
Nothing better could have happened. Just a fabulous, fabulous moment. Of course, in retrospect.
Sure.
At the time, over a 12-month period in the pandemic, I went through surgery and cancer treatment. I then lost my wife, lost my house, lost my family in any way you could look at it, lost the business, ended up broken, still alcoholic and suicidal, alone in a basement suite of an old house, exactly 1 year to the day. And what an amazing year. That year opened a door as a lucky, lucky guy at the edge of realizing that suicide is the easy way out. It's not easy walking up to the edge.
Right.
But when you get to the edge, it's a pretty simple process. You no longer have any sort of, for me, I should say. I shouldn't say it globally when it comes to suicide, because there's no way to know what everyone else thinks.
Yeah,
but it's an empty,
unique.
Yeah. It is a very empty space. And I suffered 2 bouts of depression before I got cancer, which I also think were wake-up calls knocking on the door telling me to wake up. But in depression, it's the same feeling. It's like this empty pit. Your feeling is stripped away. You are numb in a way that is almost impossible to articulate unless someone has experienced it. It's very empty, void of nothingness. And the edge of suicide was exactly the same feeling. And that's what woke me up, because I thought about, this is exactly like depression. And for some reason, that opened my mind and went, hang on a second, this isn't the end of life. I also got lucky and a friend showed up. And I was sort of whining about what I'd just gone through in that year. And he said, hang on a second. In the pandemic, you go through cancer, lose your wife, your house, your family, your business, and you're still alive? Are you crazy? That didn't kill you? Then what's going to kill you? Which is funny, but it was also
it's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, and it was sort of you mean I might be strong, not weak? It really was that sort of simple.
Yeah.
And you get the right thought in your head. If you roll it around for a while, it works for you. I got a lot of wake-up calls like depression before cancer, but I didn't let it roll around in my head. I threw it away, disregarded the message. I now believe that depression is not an illness. Depression is the nervous system is overloaded with trauma and fear and anger and regret and anxiety until the system pressurizes so strongly that depression comes along and suppresses all your feeling. And it's saying to you, you need to deal with this or else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really see it that way now, not as a bad thing, if people can try to conceive it in a defensive way that's actually helping you. It's trying to keep you from hurting your nervous system more.
Yeah.
And then I had the enlightening moment. You've always heard things like from movies, hit me like a bolt of lightning.
Yeah.
I always thought that was so silly. That's not real. Real people, that doesn't happen. Well, I'm chopping vegetables for dinner one night. In the background is a podcast, and a man on the podcast is talking about consciousness. And I'm not really listening. I sort of think that's woo-woo stuff. And he said one line, and I literally almost fell on the floor. He said, show me tomorrow. Show me yesterday. That was it. Show me yesterday. Now, Janet, if we look at our story, it is yesterday. Everything we know, everything we've learned is from our history.
Yes.
From our yesterdays.
Yeah.
The reason we can speak to each other is because we learned language from yesterday. Everything in our lives is a historical memory.
Yes.
So when he said, show me yesterday, I thought, I can't go to the cupboard and pull yesterday out and go, look, Janet, here's my yesterday. Where is it? What is it? And this started rolling in my head. For 3 months, I could not stop thinking about it. I mean, night and day.
Wow.
And I realized there's no such thing as yesterday, just like there's no such thing as tomorrow. It doesn't exist. There's not a place I can't go to yesterday, just like I can't go to tomorrow. There is no yesterday. It is just a memory. So if I was abused physically 50 years ago, it hasn't happened for 50 years. It's not happening today. How does it get here in my head? Well, I carried it. That's the only way it got here. I believed a story, and I held the story tight. I cared for the story. The story was me. I believed that's who I was, and the pain, I believe, was mine. This is a complete, ridiculous abuse of the human mind and memory. It wasn't even built for this. 75% of your life right now, you can't remember. It's impossible. What did you have for breakfast on Tuesday, September 13th, 2012? You don't know.
Right.
Why don't you know? This is the critical moment. Why don't you know? Because if I had that breakfast and I said to myself, wow, this is the greatest breakfast of all time. There's never been a better breakfast in the world. And all day I went, wow, what a breakfast that was. And for the next 30 days, I said to myself, remember that breakfast? Wasn't it incredible? I can guarantee you right now, I could tell you about the breakfast.
Sure.
Because I simply installed it deep into my subconscious by repeating it. Well, guess what? All the crap from the past, I repeated over and over and over. I'm dumb. I'm stupid. I'm hurt. I'm angry. Until that's who I was. That's how I lived. That story almost killed me.
Yeah.
And I realized my rational and logical mind says, this is silly. This is silly that we could do this to ourselves.
Yeah.
That we could put a story in the way of life. And we all have a story. Of course, mine's a little crazy. Some are far more crazy. Some are far less.
Yeah.
But everyone carries baggage that limits them, that makes them anxious about what's going to happen next, like tomorrow, that makes them regretful about things they did in the past, or they said to people, or people said or did to them. And this is, we carry this story. And I took it to a place where I realized, what does everyone see when they look into a newborn baby's face? I mean, everyone sees the same thing. They see beauty, love, and happiness. That's it. There is nothing else there. The baby doesn't have a story, a name, or anything. It is just a beautiful human being. And I think now, you don't see the baby's face. You're actually seeing your own heart reflected in the baby's face. 3 months ago, my mother died. 2 hours before she died, I looked into her face, and what did I see? The same thing. The exact same thing. At the start of life and the end of life, our real selves are right there.
Yeah.
Unmasked. The story is uncovered. It doesn't exist. That's why you hear people as they age. And what becomes important? Well, it wasn't the cars, it wasn't the house, it wasn't the career. It starts being stripped away because they're returning to where they really are. Just this loving, beautiful, happy human being. And that's all we are. That is happiness. We just mask it and cover it up with a story in between our birth and our death. And we believe this story. And I think there's a basic fundamental that happens here. Everyone's trauma is the same. Birth itself. Coming out into this world, you look at a baby pulled from the womb, and it all look the same. They go, it's so obvious. How could they not be instilled with fear and insecurity right away?
Yeah.
And then the baby's weighed and measured and put in a blanket and put on mom's chest. And the baby goes, and then you see that beautiful, loving, happy face of a baby. So that original trauma, I think, is baked in. And so I can tell Janet 10 things she's so wonderful about and beautiful about and smart about, and then criticize one thing. And Janet's at home tonight going, can't believe you said that thing about me.
Yep.
What? I say 10 great things and you're going to sit there and worry about the one criticism? Yes, because we have the baked in fear and insecurity. We're not baked in positive and confident. That's the stuff we work on. And 100 years of personal development we've just gone through. 100 years of it. $250 billion, 500,000 books. Tony Robbins been saying the same song and dance for 50 years. Great stuff. Great stuff. I'm dedicated, disciplined, set goals, see a brighter future, be optimistic, be positive, work hard every day, keep the focus. This is all great stuff. Super tools. And it doesn't work. It hasn't worked.
Yeah.
50 years ago, Stanford University did a study on people who did write down goals. 50 years ago, 95% of them never reached their goals. Well, today, it's the exact same stat. So what's going on? It seems painfully obvious that we have our story and we have this personal development idea, and we're trying to just put it on top.
Yeah.
You can't. The story's still there.
Yeah.
I had goals, a vision board, I had steps written down. I'd look at it every day. I'd think, what I have to do next. And that little voice from my story in the back of my head is going, yeah, but you're not going to do it. Go sit down. Have a beer. Relax. You've earned it. This is classic. Most people we've given up on our dreams and our goals. We settle. We say this is how life is. You do your job. Sure, it's not perfect, but I'm responsible. I'm looking after my family. And so many people, I work with so many women and men between 45 and 60. And I hear the same story over and over. They did all that. They achieved what they were supposed to, And they got to a place and the kids are grown or growing or about to leave. And they're suddenly looking in the mirror and going, is that it? Was this all it was about? I hear this over and over. That's the voice, I think, of the baby, of my mother at the end of life. The voice of the real you is always there in the background. I say, you are a clear blue sky and sunshine in your birth and right up to your death. Doesn't change. But the story is clouds and rain and wind and storms. And that's what we focus on. And all the time, that blue sky's right behind us. We could just turn around and go, it's pretty simple, really.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's like the story are just, that's what happened to us. But we make it like who we are. Those are just things. Those are just experiences, but it's not who we really are. That's not the baby, right?
Yeah. And in fact, I'd say nothing has any meaning in life.
Until we give it meaning.
It couldn't have. It's impossible for anything to have meaning to you until you give it meaning.
Yeah.
No one can make me happy, sad. No one can love me. I can't love someone. It's impossible until we create meanings and exchange meanings. And then you hurt me because I gave you that ability through meaning to have feeling about it. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. There isn't anything. I say life doesn't mean anything. Your purpose is be happy, but nothing means anything. Nothing happens for you. Everything just happens. It's you that decides it's for you or not for you or meaningful or powerful or weak, disregarded, interested in. Everything is purely up to each person. So we say, Janet is the most important person on planet Earth. By far. No one could be more important. And everyone is the same. There wouldn't be a planet Earth if Janet wasn't here. Not to Janet.
Right.
There wouldn't be one to me if I weren't here. I couldn't hug you and tell you I love you if we weren't here.
Right.
So each of us is the most important person alive. And that's not a selfish thing. That is the self. That is the whole construction of life, that our stories turn out to be all the same. Every one of us is the same story. Oh, you'll have a different trauma. You'll have different experiences. But if you look at the trajectory of every story, from every person you'll ever speak to, we all start as this humble person without anything. We all go through struggles. We all meet up with obstacles. We all fight through them somehow. We all get along. Some of us break, some of us don't. Some of us break in different ways. But we all go the same path. I work with people who are suicidal, and 99.9% aren't. They're just screaming out, somebody help me, hug me, show me it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
We're all going there, down this same road. We just wear different shoes, I like to say. But if you look at every movie from Hollywood, it's the same story.
Yeah.
It's the same story as every person. Overcoming, heroic, all the things we want to believe in, the goal setting, that bright future, this externalizing of life in the story. That I'm going to find something. I'm going to fix myself. I'm going to be better. I'm going to be stronger. I'm going to achieve. I'm going to get something. All our life is this externalizing of getting and getting somewhere. And I now realize you already got there. You already won. There's nothing to get. There's nothing to achieve. Everything you need in your life, you were born with. It was in you. Everything. We don't really learn much of anything. And if you look out into the world, and especially today, everybody's like, these are crazy times. It's a crazy world. I know people who are really anxious about the world, about who's president, about wars, about climate change. And it's all crazy, and how do I make sense of it? Look at it, and you'll see it is the collective stories of everyone just put together in fear and insecurity.
Yeah.
You're a bad person, Janet. I'm a good person. You're wrong. I'm right. I should be afraid of you. You should be afraid of me. And then you have this crazy anxiety, regret, fear, and insecurity everywhere. Because that's what we all are playing in the same story.
Yeah. So what do we do?
Well, I don't know. I'm not here to tell anyone what to do. I'll share what I did.
What did you do?
Changed my entire life.
Yeah.
And that was, I looked at this and I call it the year of life collapse. But that made me turn the words around and say, well, what if I now collapse life? And that's what I did. And what I mean is this. If my day is 24 hours long and I sleep for 8 hours, I have 16 hours to live my life in this day. Just 16 hours. That's not long.
No.
16 hours is my day. Let's see. Could I take 30 minutes and go for a walk, do something good for my body? Yeah, I think in 16 hours I could probably do that. I could fit that in. Well, could I eat better food just for one day over the next 16 hours and be a little healthier? Yeah, I guess for one day I could do that. All right. Could I call somebody and tell them I love them? See if they need any support or help or encouragement from me? Yeah, make a phone call? Yeah, I could do that. I've got 16 hours. I could probably fit one in. And so I went through everything that my life was, everything that we need to do to be human beings. And I realized everything you are is in that 16 hours. And it never will be anywhere else. Because when I wake up tomorrow, I got 16 hours to do over. And I only have to do it. I only have to be a loving, caring, beautiful human being for 16 hours. Who couldn't do it for 16 hours? And so every day I said, 16 hours. This is all I have to do. I don't focus on my future or the past because I'm right here with intention, at attention for 16 hours. And when you're in attention to the present, right here and now, your brain absolutely cannot have thoughts from yesterday or about tomorrow. They don't happen.
True.
Because you're aware.
Yeah.
70% of our days, we live sleepwalking in habit and routine and thoughts from yesterday and thoughts about tomorrow. 70% of our day is like that. I would go to the fridge, open it up, and grab food. Not thinking about the food, because I'm not at attention. I'm just sleepwalking through it. Just doing the stuff I've always done. So I started putting sticky notes all over the house to help me wake up. That's part of my ADHD, I'm sure. I have a sticky note on the fridge, and it's still there. It says, what's going into your mouth? So when I arrive at the fridge, I might see the sticky note and go, oh yeah, I should think about what I'm going to eat. That's all. Just to wake up.
Yeah.
Be present. I have a sticky note still right here on my TV behind me, and it says, get off your ass. The TV knows I'm sitting in front of it.
Yeah.
And I need it to tell me, get up, be awake.
Yeah.
And that's all I did. That's why I call myself a 16-hour coach, because everything happens in the 16 hours. And it is a gift. That's my book right there. The gift is the present. Because we get this gift, this beautiful gift every day. And so little do we actually focus on it and realize how amazing it is. You can get so much done in 16 hours when you're awake and working at it.
Yeah.
Everything you need happens in one day, and you'll only ever live one day.
Yeah. Yeah. And like if you're working on something and you're really in the zone, right? You're super focused, you're loving what you're doing, whether it could be work or it could be a hobby or whatever, spending time with your kids, whatever it is that you're doing, you are there, you're in the moment. And yeah, you're not thinking about the past, you're not thinking about the future, you're just in the moment. And everybody talks about, oh, those moments. But we can have those moments all day long, right? And just not
look at the amount of people
worry about.
Look at the amount of people when you talk to them will talk about those moments in the past.
Mm-hmm.
They're constantly talking about, I remember my grandparents, the good old days. I've got friends who talk endlessly about things that happened 10 years ago. Endlessly. Every conversation with them. And I'm literally here to tell you I don't have a past. I never go there. I never think about it. I never talk about it. Only in this case,
Yeah.
for this demonstration in a podcast. But in my normal life, I stay right here.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, life is simple. Life is easy. And I am constantly happy. I just don't worry about anything. I say no one has a problem in this world. Everyone has situations, and you may have to deal with it or not. But only we have this crazy skill of turning it into a problem to worry about and frustrate over, when it's really just things we have to do or don't do. You get to choose.
Yeah.
But there are no problems. There's nothing to worry about. All this stuff we think is such a big deal doesn't come to pass.
Yeah.
We keep waking up in the morning going, yep, I got to eat food. I got to get dressed. Got to get the kids off to school or whatever it is. Got to get to work. And we just do it. And people are constantly turning around and I'll say, oh yeah, well, show me where it all went wrong. Well, it wasn't that bad. Yeah, and it never is. But we keep dreaming up all the stuff that's going to go wrong. And it's just us creating it in this story, believing this story about ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. What would be the one thing that you would tell our listeners? Like what is the first step?
Well, yeah. I've got sort of 3 steps that I always looked at. And the first one is radical responsibility.
Stop the blame.
Really taking, that blame, that excuse making, the reasons why. I'm taking that away and being radically responsible. And what that means is, the trauma happened. Okay, I don't deny that it happened. That's a reality. But I'm responsible for carrying it. Nobody forced me to carry it. I do not believe this psychic scarring or wound idea that psychiatrists and people will say, and I'm sorry, it just, I just don't think it's a reality. 100 years of psychiatry, psychology, of therapy, from the greatest minds, from Freud to Skinner to Adler, you name it. And 100 years of it. And we have more people on psychoactive drugs today than ever before in history. We have more people at all ages in talk therapy than ever before in history. So what have we done? We failed miserably. Yeah. It hasn't worked. There is no mental health happening. I say it's not a virus, but it's viral. There are people standing up like a badge of honor about their poor mental health. We're creating an environment where everyone is wounded. And I think it's BS. I really do. We are becoming incredibly weak, way oversensitive. Life isn't that easy. It's hard, and we're meant to push back against resistance. We're meant to fall down and get a bloody nose and learn to get back up. And we're really missing that today. And I really think that therapy has been a disaster in many ways. I think it's creating more problems because it's saying to you, it's like this. If I stand up in front of a room of 100 people to give a talk, and the first thing I do, I go, hi, my name's Dallas. I was traumatized as a child. I've struggled with anger and depression and anxiety for years. And I'm working really hard to keep my life together and keep doing well. being responsible, and I'm really working at it. And I'm speaking out because I want other people to know they're not alone. And the whole crowd clapping. Oh, he's so brave. Isn't that wonderful? Now, if I stood up in front of 100 people and I said, hi, my name's Dallas. I am such a happy human being. I have no problems, no worries, no concerns, nothing. Life is beautiful. Everyone is beautiful. They'd all go, oh, there's something wrong with this guy. That's the culture. That's the environment we have created, where if you are sick, you are honored. And if you are actually really well, really consciously aware and alive, beautiful and loving, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
That's madness. That is a story culture, a story of fear and insecurity that permeates everything, the whole world. And so one of the first things I do when I work with people is I get them to use their cell phone and record their story as if they were speaking to a friend, telling them their life. And do that every day for 30 days.
Okay.
Every morning when you wake up, tell your story into your phone, videotape it as if you're talking to a friend. And then every night, watch your video as if you were a friend watching it. And everyone I've done with this with people, they've all found the same thing. There's discrepancies in the story. There's problems with memories. They start talking about their past. They start seeing that there's holes in this story they think they are. And so the second step is to win the Oscar for the best editing of a major motion picture. You are the motion picture. You are the one who needs to win an Oscar by looking at your story and saying, you know what? What if it's not exactly true? What if I need to review it and maybe edit my movie? Maybe there's things that I don't need to carry anymore. You know, there's a big line today. You hear it everywhere. It's believe in yourself. Be strong. And I hear this in a lot of mental health groups online constantly. They'll say terrible things online, oh, I'm struggling today. I feel like I want to end my life. Somebody talk to me. And people will write back, be strong, believe in yourself. And I think it's the exact opposite. Don't believe in yourself. Because the self you're believing in is this story that has given you this pain. So how would believing in yourself more make anything better? It doesn't. Disbelieve in yourself. Because yourself is a lie. Yesterday isn't real. It's just a story you carry in your head. And that story gets expressed in the body. People say, it's not just in my head. I've got a kidney problem. I've got this. I've got that. Terrible pain every day. Yeah, well, the mental is expressed in the physical.
Yes.
That's a reality. We are a biological creature and it is hooked together.
Yeah.
You can worry yourself into cancer and kill yourself. Believe me. Suicide is mental, but it's very physical. So I think it's really important that people understand that what are you believing in? And what is a belief? Janet, you believed things 10 years ago you don't believe today.
Absolutely.
And you will believe things in 10 years that you don't believe today.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the truth of belief? A friend of mine who was a drinking buddy went down in flames like me, but he ended up on the street, meth addict and just a wreck. He'd been diagnosed with dozens of disorders, been on lots of medications, just a wreck. And that's the last I saw of him. And then maybe a year ago, I'm in a coffee shop and who walks in? I couldn't believe it. And just normal and healthy looking, and I was just stunned.
Wow.
And boom, we sit down together and I'm going, tell me your story.
Right?
Because you were in the gutter. I thought you were dead. I couldn't even believe you're here. And he said, well, I guess it's pretty simple. Some guy came along talking religion and I found God and Jesus saved me. And we talked about it for a while. And you realize very quickly, religion doesn't save anyone. The story saves people.
Yeah.
He found a story that supported him, that made him feel loved and accepted. Mm-hmm. He got out of all his mental dysfunctions and disorders, out of all his addiction, and he's living a great life because he has a good story that supports him. Now, I'm not saying that everyone needs that story. But everyone is in a story, and you can believe a different story. If you believe a story that you're broken and hurt and no good, that's what life is like.
Yeah.
And you can believe a story that you want You can create what you want. We have this amazing power, and every person alive has the strength and the power to do this. We often don't think so. I mean, if you spent 50 years believing your story, it's pretty hard to change it overnight.
For sure.
It's going to take a lot of effort. This is not simple. You know, when you get there, you're stunned by the simplicity. One of the things I tell people, in a marriage, a terrible marriage for so many years, where both of us knew we shouldn't be together. And in the back of your mind, you think you can't get out of it. You're somehow entangled. You have a house together, cars together, kids together.
Yeah.
We had bank accounts together, business together. And it was like, I can't leave. I mean, there's no way to leave. And then when it does happen, when it came to an end, my head sort of swung around instantly and you go, it was that easy? That was it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's this amazing thing that we can believe this story, this place in our life. We can believe it's so real and so powerful. It becomes a prison.
Yeah.
And yet we're sitting there with the keys to the door and we don't realize it. And every time you open the door and walk out, you go, wow, it was that easy? Really?
Yeah.
Anybody could do this?
Uh-huh.
And they can.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
All in the gift, one day.
Yep.
You only have to get it right one day.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
And I think that simplicity is the complexity. That's why it's so difficult.
Yeah.
Because we're trained, programmed since children that everything's external. Everything in our life is out there.
Yes.
Get through school, go on to high school, go on to college, get the house, get the partner, have the kids. Everything's external. And you should always be looking outside and looking forward into the future. And we're missing life is right here.
Yeah.
And that's why so many people, as I said before, wind up saying to me, I came to this place and I said, is that it? I feel kind of empty. Like, I just don't know what my life's about. And that is that. That external comes back and says, really? Do you really think this is the whole thing? And it turns out, no, it's not. But you got to get out of your story.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you, Dallas. Thank you. That was a lot of wisdom. I appreciate you being here and sharing your wisdom with us. And yeah, just your unique perspective on everything. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. Remember that you are loved, you are worthy, you are valuable, you are meant for more, and that it really does get better. If you are in crisis, there are numbers that you can call or text to get the help that you need. That information for Canada and the US is in the description below each episode. If you are in immediate crisis, please call 911. We love you, and I hope you'll listen again.